Hello, Jeffco. So this is Shauna Fritzer with Jeffco PTA, and we are here for the most fun you will ever have, of course, which is being the treasurer of your PTA. And it really, truly is a lot of fun. I know I enjoyed it. Debbie is phenomenal, and we're going to go ahead and just kick off. So go ahead, Miss Debbie.
Well, hello and welcome to everyone, and thank you so much for volunteering to be treasurer or volunteering to be on the board and want to know about treasury. Just thank you very much. All right, Shauna, are you going to be able, you were going to click for me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here we go. So PTA treasurer training. First, we're going to talk about the duties of the treasurer, and it's all to be clear, informative, and keep good track of the money for your PTA. Okay, so you've got to have accurate financial records. You're going to do the budget, and then you'll pay the bills and deposit the checks. And you must present a treasurer's report at the meeting and do the tax returns, and we'll help you figure out which one you need to do in this training. And then the Secretary of State documents if you make a certain threshold. And then you're going to get the books ready for the audit, and then that's pretty much the way that a year cycle happens. All right, so if you're a brand new treasurer, the first thing you want to do before you accept the books is make sure you've got that audited financial review. And that's important. You can be a part of it, but you really want to make sure you accept the books. Even if you don't get one, then you're getting some books that may have some issues, and you want to be sure you note that you are going to be the one that fixes it and not continue down this path. And then the next thing you want to do is go to the bank and get the signature cards done. Oh, and these are the records. This is really a good place to talk about this. These are the things you want to receive from your past treasurer. They'll look different for everybody, but there should be a checkbook, maybe a notebook with last year's, vouchers in there and deposit slips. But this is where you're going to be able to see everything that happened financially with your PTA, and then that's kind of how you guide. We'll send these, it'll be up on the website, all this information. So please just know that everything in here is pretty heady. You'll always be able to go to JCPTA, and we have all kinds of resources at the end for you to be able to look at this, okay? Okay, so you want to make sure you get these. Like I said, they will look different for every PTA, but just make sure you get your financial records. And this is so that you have accurate books to continue. If they're not accurate, then you want to, look for something that might be out of the ordinary, and you can always contact us to help you with that. And you're really, most importantly, trying to be transparent and make sure you're a good steward of the money of your PTA, because this is other people's money, and you want to do a good job with that. And that's what the audit will show.
And to clarify, the audit is sometimes called the financial review. They're the same thing. And Debbie and I earlier, actually during the summer in June, there's a page on our website with the recording of it and instructions for how to do the financial review during a pandemic. So all the tools are ready for you.
Yeah, we did our financial review right here. We did ours completely virtually. No, we never met. So it is possible you'll have a lot of extra paperwork, but that's okay. All right, so a really, really good PTA Money Matters, that comes from National. And I hope that you've all logged on there and gotten your officers. I'm hoping you talked about this earlier, but there are some great resources on that website if you're an officer of a PTA. It goes through financial review, and there's, like I said, stuff on the Jeffco website. And then if for some reason you decide you want to step down as treasurer and you get a new one, there should be another financial review then. If something seems interesting that the officers of the board want to look at, they can call a review then too. So Hopefully you're only having to do it once a year. And then like we suggested there, the virtual financial review due to the pandemic is at that website there. And Shauna and I did it one weekend and tell you how to do it. Okay, so who gets to do this financial review? You do need to look in your bylaws because it'll be specified there. There is a form that comes from Colorado PTA. You log on there and get that form down there, and all of this stuff is on there. So it's 2 or 3 members who are not signers on the account. It could be, these tend to be nice to have somebody like a committee chair who is familiar with what your PTA does. Any parent, any community member that's a PTA member, but not a signer. And if you are brand new and you haven't done the financial review yet, and you can absolutely be a part of the audit, it's not a bad idea. If you are not a signer yet, then you can sign the review. If you have already been made a signer, you can certainly work through it. Just don't sign that form that PTA requires. And here's what Shauna was talking about. I don't believe we have very many of these, but if you really do have to do that 990 in, a CPA or somebody who's really good at that we would advise that's pretty complicated.
Yeah, but we do have guides for the 990N and the 990EZ. So we've all done them. So we can tell you it's really not that bad.
Yeah, no, the 990N is very easy. The 990EZ is not hard. You just have to sort of organize what your events were. But you'll need your review from last year, because the first line in the form that you have to fill out, you're going to put the ending balance will be your beginning balance. And this is primarily based on your bank statements. You'll need to get those and add up your deposits for the year and everything you've spent. So debits, debit card transactions, checks, any expense, you're going to add those up. Okay, so I just get out my bank statements and lay them out in monthly order, add up all of the deposits, keep that in one total, all of the expenses and payments in another. And that is really for the form, basically what you need, okay? You'll need then what you're really gonna need is the ledgers and all of the documentation, because your committee that's going to review all this is going to pull things out and say, yes, it looks like that is the total. It's just to verify your work. Okay, so that's what you need to do your review. Nothing too complicated.
Beautiful.
And then just know that most fiscal years for PTAs, June 30th is the end. So your review would be due July 30th. If you have a different end of your fiscal year, that'll be in your bylaws, and just know it's 30 days after your year closes. There's the website to get that report that you're going to fill out. And it says make 4 copies. We had somebody ask about doing this, without a lot of paper. You'll really have your 1 copy, and you can email it to the Colorado PTA and CC your treasurer, your president and secretary. They can print it out as they need to put it in their books. So that's 4 copies. Really, that probably should say, give this to these 4 people, these 4 groups, however you need to. Okay, like I said, become familiar with your bylaws. It gives you a lot of information. And then one of the first things you need to do is change your signature card at the bank. You want to get all those officers that are no longer on your board off, and then you want to get you on there and and the other person that you would like to get on there. We have 3 at Jeffco PTA: are me, the treasurer, our president, and then we have our vice president Liz on there.
Okay.
I think we went back. There we go.
Yeah,
and you will need to have the meeting minutes of your election that shows you are a officer. Bring your driver's license. I have found that every bank is a little bit different, so it's always best to call, especially now during the pandemic, if you're going to have to do something in person, and call and say, what exactly do you need from us? Can we meet and get us switched over? That's true. Jeffco employees should not be board members. Correct, Shauna? Are we still going with that?
So Jeffco PTA, for Jeffco PTA in general, so staff members who handle money for a school should not be treasurers. So, and it's actually a Jeffco policy, not a PTA policy, because it does increase the risk of mishandling funds with two different organizations. So Jeffco prefers that staff members not be doing that. It is not a PTA policy again, though. So it is a Jeffco policy, Jeffco school district policy. Now, if you have maybe someone who's a para at a school and they don't handle money, so it's okay for them to be on your board, and that's okay. So we're just gonna, if they handle money at the school, and maybe they're your president, because they're also a PTA at the school or something like that. Outline, maybe they're not the person who signs on the account if they, do that. So if I were a school district employee and I'm on the Jeffco PTA board or my school board, Liz and Debbie would be the signers on the account, and maybe we find a third person who's not me. So to be signers on the account. I still have fiduciary obligation for the organization, but that's how it should run.
Okay, and then I've mentioned this before, you should really log on to the National PTA website and look at your local leader. They call it, for the treasurer, it will be the finance kit. And there's a lot of great resources there. All right, and then we're going to move into, after the review, we're gonna, probably the first thing you need to really do early on is your budget, because you really cannot spend any money until you've had a budget voted on by your membership, okay? So as we talked about earlier in the day, if you were there, you can amend your budget, especially this year. Things are kind of wacky. Money may be better than we think, maybe worse. You're gonna have to kind of keep it tight, but no, you can amend it, okay? And the students really do depend on your performance. If money's missing from the PTA, you're taking it from the kiddos. Mm-hmm. So be very.
And please know that if something suspicious happens in your PTA, please contact us at Jeffco PTA right away so that we can walk you through the appropriate procedures and what needs to happen. That's so very important, because PTA is not a club. We're a real legal organization, and we need to run it as a business, and we do things for the good of the organization. It's not about personalities, and you may very much love, if I was your treasurer and I do something incorrect, you're not here to beat me over the head. So for it, if I make a mistake, so don't pester, someone who's volunteering for this. Let's help them either get training so that they do things the right way. So, and this is why this training is so very important. Or, if there is something inappropriate that's happened, and that does happen from time to time, we need to help walk you through how to handle it the right way to protect the PTA and to protect the rest of you as officers.
And in that financial national, there's a sample budget. Also, there's one on the Jeffco website too. So when you're getting ready to do your budget, you need to get a committee, 3 to 5 people. I would be shocked if you could get 5 people, quite frankly. It's hard to get people. They're very worried and intimidated about this. So get people. It can be a board member. It can be a committee member. People that know your PTA, though, it's always good to get somebody who's been around a little while, because they've got a lot of historical knowledge that can help you out there. So you're going to get last year's budget and kind of look it over. Do we want to do this type of thing again? Oh, that was terrible. We don't want to do that. That's how you're going to start setting it up for this current year. We had to eliminate a lot of things at Jeffco just because we can't meet in person. So that's going to be an interesting thing this year. And then after you look at this and you think, well, gee, last year we spent X amount. I think we can do it for less. I think we can do it more or more, but you need to determine how much money you anticipate going forward. And that's what you're going to build your budget around. not, wishful thinking. You got to be conservative on a good year, but especially this year.
Yeah.
Okay. I will be honest with you. I always do a quick preliminary by myself. I get last year's, have it ready to go. So when I do sit down with the people who I run it by, it's a lot less work for them. You're gonna say, here's what we did last year. Here's what I think we're gonna do this year. What do you think? Tweak it that way. And that's what your preliminary will be, and keep some of the money for an emergency fund. Remember, your goal is not to be a bank and not hoard a lot of money. You can put aside stuff for big projects, encumber those funds for a playground, something like that. But for the most part, you're covering for the year and a little startup, get through the summer for next year. So that's basically what you're looking at. It does say give funds to attend training. Yeah, when that happens again, it's not virtual. There's not a whole lot of costs associated with virtual. There'll be some, but you do want to keep training your officers and those members that you think might be coming up and might be an officer. So keep that in your budget.
We've always made a commitment at Jeffco PTA to make sure that we have this fall training and that it's free to our members so that, PTAs who can't do the fundraising to attend the big events, that we always have resources for all of our people to attend trainings for free. So, and please make sure that all of your officers are trained. That's the worst thing that can happen. And usually the PTAs that have problems during the year, so we end up helping, either they spotted the problem because they attended training, or the problem occurred because they didn't attend training. So that's a big one.
Okay, here's a sample budget for you. So you're going to have your budget actual, and then the right hand side there, the proposed, that's what you're looking at. This is an old one, but that would be for the current year. And that's what you're going to work from, tweaking it back and forth when you present it to your committee. And there's a copy of this on the website, so you can plug in your own stuff, change the line items as you need.
And we actually have Excel forms too of this. If somebody wants to take it and copy and change it to their things. I again want to make sure that everybody understands, be conservative when you're talking about your numbers, especially this year. Your membership chair may have a really big idea that, we only had 50 members last year, but this year, I'm doing it and I'm going to have 200 members. And, you put it out there. We did this much in fundraising. Well, I'm going to do an even better job and put it up at 15,000 instead of, the 5,000 we brought last year. That's really not a good idea. So when you're fundraising, try to keep things in line with what you've done in the past. Be very conservative. It's okay if you fundraise more money than you expect. And you can always amend the budget for expenses, but, please don't overstate things because you have wide eyes and want to do a really good job. We know that. We love that about you, but your treasurer's job is to be very, very conservative. And, Debbie and I had this discussion too when she was doing her preliminary budget. And I said, oh, I'm not comfortable with this. So I don't know what we can do this year during the pandemic. So I'm not comfortable with throwing that much money out there and then being responsible for it.
I think our budget this year has maybe 4 line items of expenses, and that's about it. Okay, so you've done your committee and you've got it ready to go. You present it to the board. They say, yeah, that looks like what we're thinking. And then most PTAs at Rooney Ranch, where I was treasurer, we always did our budget meeting in September. You want to get that early. You've done registration, you've got membership underway. So let's get the budget so we can move forward. So you want to try to, I think historically, if you could try to do it at a certain meeting, that's always helpful. Doesn't have to be, but you need to announce that this is the budget meeting. And you'll have a lot of people show up. And then the first things you want to do is make sure everybody signs in and they check that they're a member. They can join right then and there, that's fine, but you cannot vote on that budget if you're not a member. So make sure you are keeping track of that, okay? And you present this. We always, back in our day, we did a PowerPoint. up in the library and discuss, present it, and there's discussion. You do it just Robert's rules. And, just remember, you are spending other people's money. People can make suggestions. Then you can have a motion, make that, and then you fix the budget. And then you have your vote and a majority rules on that. And there you have your template for your spending for the year. And then once it's adopted, you can delete all of those other forms and say adopted budget. You print it out, that goes in your treasurer book. You're going to keep that with you all the time so that you will have questions. You can say, no, that wasn't in the budget. Okay. And then I looked at this one. This is just sort of all your financial records you might need. Everybody does this differently. A lot of PTAs use QuickBooks. That would be their ledger. You can get your check register from there. If you're small enough and you could use Excel sheets for this, that's great too. Just know you have your checks that need 2 signatures, your deposits, your vouchers. I think really the most important thing, because we're going to talk about each of these, is make sure you reconcile your bank statement monthly so you don't have any checks hanging out there. You will probably have a parent or two, especially these days, that doesn't deposit them timely because nobody goes to the bank anymore. Just keep track of that. What you really don't want, this drives me nuts as a treasurer, when you have a check that clears in the following fiscal year. It can cause not a lot of problems because you'll be able to figure out it. But when you do that financial review / audit, you'll have to note that this check was cleared in the following fiscal year. So just kind of poke them and say, go deposit the darn check before June, please.
Yes.
Okay, now you need to have the 2 signatures on the checks. Banks will tell you we don't do 2 signatures lines. That's fine. Just take the checks that you have and make sure one person signs on the check and then another one signs right below. But you need to have those 2 signatures. And then you should always pay by check. You can pay by debit card. We'll talk about that in a minute, but don't pay anybody in cash. It's, used to be you could make copies of the cash and print it out so you could say, look, here was cash. You can't do that anymore. Printers don't let you print cash because they just don't like you to print cash. Think you're counterfeiting or something. And then anything you're paying needs to be in the budget and an authorized expense. Mm-hmm. And then everything needs to have a receipt. Please don't. And this is a hard one. Maybe you guys can jump in. We've all had the parent who ran a big event and, I lost half the receipts and I went to Costco and, they did it. Were you going to not pay them? I don't know. That's really a tough one. I just think maybe you stress over and over to your committee chairs, you have to keep those receipts. Tell them over.
Treat it again like a legal business.
Yeah.
So, and you really do need to treat it like a legal business. If you make any exceptions to that, as a board, I would probably have a conversation and document that you're reimbursing things because, you can either get a copy of their bank statement that shows that they spent $200 at Costco or, $100, on pizza or something like that. But again, too, especially if you're going to use those debit or credit cards, please follow all of these procedures. So Debbie, we talked about this at the beginning training in the morning, and it's really important still to note this today because there are hackers that will spoof, your email, my email, and send an email saying, go get, gift cards, for me for this, whatever. And you can generally tell that they're not really from the person that you're sharing because I don't use the same language structure. So that Debbie's being asked for. So to go get those gift cards. And we've had PTAs who did get scammed in this way. If I ever asked Debbie to go pick up, $300 worth in gift cards, to thank some teachers, Debbie would be texting me.
I'm going to call you.
Yeah. Going to call me. Not only that, because it's not the appropriate procedure because I need documentation. So I would tell Debbie, I want it for staff appreciation, or this teacher did X, Y, Z, but she has to approve that expense too. Just because I said that, you know, you should get gift cards. The PTA money is not mine. It belongs to the membership. So Debbie should always, you know, I don't get to just say that or decide it on my own. So there should be questions if this happens. If it does happen to you, I want you to immediately let us know, because you need to file claim forms. And not only that, but we need to have some conversations about what procedures you're having and following at your PTA to ensure that this doesn't ever happen again. So we have all these trainings for you to prevent any issues from ever impacting you as people or PTAs.
And on a true story, this one looked so legitimate. I got an email from Shauna, and it even said president at jeffcopta.org doing that. Can you ACH money over to this? And it sounded so legitimate. And I called Shauna. I'm like, you don't want any ACH over here. She goes, nope. So they're really getting clever and good. Always. I think part of the electronic stuff that we need to talk about documenting is, if you're going to do anything that way, you need an email or a text from your board. I send it to my executive board and say, hey, every month MailChimp is going to be sending us a bill, and I'm just wanting you to know that comes directly out of the bank account. You'll see it on the treasurer's report. So that everybody knows is going to happen. You might have some things like that. So just document anything you could print out and put in your treasurer notebook in case anybody has a question, all right? And then this is voucher system. We've got a copy of a voucher. I think it comes after this slide. You just fill out what the expense is for. The person who's giving you the voucher may not know the budget item number there. You fill that in. And then you're gonna attach the receipts. And that's what's gonna say, okay, this look good. We've got all the stuff, it's in the budget. And let's write this check for this person. And then you just keep these in your notebook under expenses. And there's a copy of this online. Okay, now we're going to talk about money that comes in. So anytime you make a deposit, you want to make a copy of the check. Cash comes in, you can't really make a copy on your copier. I think what we do is take a picture of it with our phone, and they'll let you do that. I just like to have copies of everything that's gonna go on my deposit. And then go deposit, get your receipt, and then you'll put this in the bank. There's also a voucher for this, which I think is coming up after this. And it's important to deposit everything quickly. Again, so it happens in the fiscal year that you are currently operating in. You may have some things that checks that are cut really closely to the end of your fiscal year. But if you can get the expense or the funds in, so that's in that year, and then if it clears in the following year, it can stay in the year it needs to be. And also to make sure nothing's missing. You know, banks lose things, people forget to deposit things. That's how you're going to be able to tell if something, you know, gee, didn't we do this last month, and shouldn't we have more money in there? Maybe it didn't get deposited, okay?
Yeah.
And then if you ever have any, what's that?
I was just going to throw in there too. So the PTAs that are doing the fundraisers, it's a really big one to make sure that you deposit that quickly and promptly. If you're doing those cookie dough fundraisers, which this year looks different again, but remember this for future years, when you're doing those deposits, if you don't deposit them regularly, you're going to have more issues with bounced checks. So because as treasurers, we're very, very good at balancing our books, but not everybody is as OCD and organized, in their personal life. So when the fundraiser forms get turned in and you wait 3 weeks, for the fundraiser to end, sometimes that money is no longer there, and that causes you more issues. So somebody should be counting and going in there and getting that daily from the school. Or things look different again this year, but daily, and that should be taken care of. You shouldn't be leaving your money sitting in the school for 3 weeks.
Right. And this is what you would say. You get 5 checks, you're going to put them on here, and then you can put, fundraiser, cookie dough, whatever. This is how you'll keep track of all of that. And done, then you've paid your bills, you've deposited your stuff, and so this is the information you're going to use to do your treasurer's report. It's absolutely essential. This is presented at every meeting. So if you're doing a executive board meeting, you need one there. And then if you're doing a membership meeting, you need one there too. It's just got to be transparent where the money's coming from. It builds trust, and it makes you a good steward of the money, and it helps you keep your nonprofit status. Okay.
I'd like to make sure too that you bring up, Debbie, every time you've done these trainings, we've had this conversation too, because a treasurer job is so important, and no one else can do their jobs without the treasurer's job. And you've always been very, very upfront with people, about, because of the importance of this role. If you're not going to do your job, you've signed up for it. If you're just scared, let us know and we will train you. We'll work with you one-on-one. But if you're not going to do it and give your reports every month, then please don't take this position. So let the PTA find someone who will do it. If you have a problem keeping up with this, just because the rest of the PTA cannot keep running if you don't do your job, you are the very most important person in this PTA to keep the organization running. So your role is just critical. So please make the commitment. Don't get your bank statement, wait until the night before the PTA meeting before you get around to reconciling things, and then things don't work. Things don't calculate. It's a big deal.
Yeah. I always say after this training, if you think, holy cow, what have I got myself into? I don't want to do it. There is no shame in saying, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. We've seen so many times boards thinking things are getting done and they aren't. And then they have to sort of recreate what happened to get back on track. So please, if you don't want to do it, there's no shame in that. Just step up and let somebody else who wants to do it. And this would be a sample treasurer's report. You are going to show the month that you're in. That's what happened this month. That's your year-to-date expenses. There's your budget. Are we on track with the budget? And are we over or under? If you're getting close to being over budget, that's when you need to stop. We need to look at the budget. Do we need to amend it? Do we need to take it to the membership? Is it only $1, $10 over? Oh, well, look at that, keep track of that too. All right. All right. So you got to do your part, keeping you in good standing. And the good standing is all about keeping your nonprofit status so that your donations are tax deductible. So the IRS doesn't send you the naughty letter. And everybody's essential on the board of keeping the PTA in good standing. A lot of it falls on the treasurer's shoulders. So first thing you're going to do, I'm going to go through this quickly, is the officers list. Hopefully the president does that. Membership, you usually have a membership person. We're getting ready to have a membership, so you probably talked about that in membership training. So they need to get all the list of members. The treasurer jumps in and writes the check that goes to Colorado PTA. So you want to work with your membership person on that. Right around the beginning of September, those of you who have been insured by AIM Insurance, those premiums, they are doing this a lot online. So if you had a previous treasurer, then you did not update the email and you haven't received your AIM Insurance, please check and see if maybe they got it and forgot to send it to you. But we got ours, it's been paid. You need that liability insurance. It's a requirement of the IRS, basically. And you don't want to operate without insurance. There's too many things that you could have go wrong that you want that. And then you've done your financial review, that gets sent to the state PTA. That's another item on the good standing list. Tax return should have been done by the last treasurer. However, they're not due, generally speaking, until November of this year. It'll come up, I'll tell you the deadline, but if you have a PTA that fiscal year is June 30th ending, November is when your 990 is due. So if it hasn't been done, contact us if you're scared. We'll help you do it. And then
I
the
want to make sure
secretary.
you know, we also recommend, just because it's due November 15th, doesn't mean you have to wait. So when you end your fiscal year, get that financial report done right away. File the 990 right away. File your Secretary of State reports if you have to do those right away. Please don't wait until the deadline, because if you need help, it keeps us from finding the PTAs who need help the most, because we're still tracking you. So to figure out why, and if you can do it, just do it. So you completed your obligations. You know, that's the first thing we do in Jeffco PTA. Debbie took care of financial review. We reviewed the budget. All of our documents, including the Secretary of State, that is not due until February, is already done for Jeffco PTA. And those of you who still have kids in schools, boy, you're making your life so much easier by getting it done and not waiting until during the school year.
It's just easy. Once you get your financial review done, if you have to do the 990, you've got all the information there handy. And if you have to do the Secretary of State, it's all there. So it's just, I think it's easier just to knock it out all at once.
Yep.
All right, one of the things that we need to note is you collect, let's go for $10 just because it's easy. You collect $10 for your PTA membership, and part of that goes to national, part of that goes to state, and those need to be kept separate because those really aren't your funds to deal with. So you don't want that in your budget or your treasurer's report as your income. So if you just look on this PowerPoint, people do it different ways. I think the most common is, oops, there we go. You know, under the income section or revenue, whatever you call it, you're gonna have your wrapping paper, movie night, whatever it is. And then you'll have membership, and it's going to be, see how it says net of the $625 due to Colorado PTA. So I break mine out like that too. And everyone knows that that's going to be sent in October and February. And the money that's actually on the line item as income is what is yours, your PTA to spend for your members, okay?
Beautiful.
And a little bit about insurance. It does protect your unit against liability lawsuits. Unfortunately, we have seen some PTAs, bounce house issues, types of things like that. Then if you have your insurance and it's covered under the insurance, then they handle it. They get an attorney, and it's just, the PTA that we were dealing with that had an issue said once AIM jumped in, it was taken care of. So that's nice. I will say it's very important to go to the AIM website. They list all the things that are and are not covered in your policy. You can get a writer for an event. I would highly recommend, if you have any questions, email them. They'll get you the person that's like assigned to your region, and they're awesome. They just are really good. And then they also will cover if there's an embezzlement and cover you as an officer. It's called D&O, Director and Officers, and it covers you in case anything happens. All right, now this is the tax return. I think most of the PTAs we deal with are dealing with the top line, less than $50,000. Now this is deposited into your account. It's not profits. It's not like, gee, we collected $10,000 at the wrapping paper, but then we had to pay $5,000 and we only made $5,000. No, it's the money that gets deposited. How that's determined is all the deposits in your account. So that financial review, when you come up with that total deposits, that's the number you look at to decide what return you need to do. So that there are PTAs that consider, gee, maybe we don't want to make more than $50,000 because we don't want to have to do a 990 easy, but don't let that determine it, because you can go all the way up to $200,000 before you have to do the form that needs a CPA. So the postcard, you go to a website, you answer, I think, 4 questions and send it off, and then you get a receipt. It takes a day or two for them to say it's been accepted. You're going to print that out, send that to Colorado PTA, keep it in your book, let us know too, so we can mark you as good standing. And that's how you do that one. The EZ, we've got lots of resources. Take a look at them if you have to do that. And there are certain schedules you may or may not have to do, but I don't want to go into great detail. Just know if you get in there and you need any help, we're here, okay? Most of it's pretty intuitive, and the guides that are on the website are very helpful. And then if you make over $500,000, wow, good for you. That's awesome. But that gets very complicated. There's all kinds of tricky things about what this is considered and what this is. So that's best to get a professional for that. And then you can always file an extension. If you get in there and you're like, oh yeah, we just don't have time. The form is the 8868. You can just go to irs.gov and search 8868, fill that out, send it in, and it'll give you three more months. You do have an automatic one. Yeah, it is automatic. It's always good to file. You got to let the IRS know you're aware. They can get kind of tricky. And then the penalty. We've seen some of those, haven't we? And just know they do want to work with you, the IRS. Shauna and I have dealt with them many times. They understand we're an all-volunteer organization. So if you get a letter and you let us know, we'll work with you and get that worked on. And then this UBI, that's unrelated business income. That shouldn't really be going on in your PTA. That would mean you have a store or something and you're selling things that aren't really related to your mission. So I don't want to talk about that, because really, if you have it, let us know, we'll figure it out. And then something to explain about your nonprofit status. The nonprofit 501c3 is with Colorado PTA, and we are an umbrella underneath them. Each of us have our own EIN that you use for donations. When you send out, thank you for your donation, you've donated, and you put your identification number on there. You can get that from us if you need to, but you should have it. And there is a sales tax. Yeah, definitely, Mike. That 990 in is so much easier than filing an extension. You should really not need one if you make under 50,000. But the sales tax exemption's tricky. I'm not going to lie to you about that. The wonderful legislature, during the time when we had some PTA advocates on that, made it so that school-related expenses and PTA type things were exempt from sales tax. It's not exempt from RTD, and it may not be exempt from local. So an example, I know for a fact, it is not, if you sell t-shirts at your school, the city of Lakewood would like for you to submit sales tax. I don't know. This is a
down
one.
to right now, the city of Wheat Ridge appears to be the only one who is worried about the PTA sales tax right now.
Good.
So, and Wheat Ridge has lots of forms. So sorry for any of the PTAs in Wheat Ridge, but that is a thing there, and you do have to file there. So the rest of the cities have gotten pretty good at dealing with the PTAs and nonprofits for now. So that could change at any time. We never know.
Yeah. So just kind of keep your eye on that. But and then just, if you ever need a copy of your actual exemption letter, you need to get that from the state. It'll say, and it'll say Colorado PTA tax exempt, blah, blah, blah. So if you need that, you get that from the state, or you could ask us, we could help you get that. Yeah. And now the Colorado solicitations, that is kind of, you can kind of think of that like the Colorado tax return for nonprofits. Unfortunately, it's not as high as the $50,000 one for IRS. Be nice if they would align those, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that anytime soon. So if you make over 25,000 3 consecutive years, if you make 25,000 last year and you don't this year, you do next year, you don't next year, you don't have to file. It has to be 3 years in a row. And then once you do that, you have to file forever, okay? Even if you only make $100. So you will go onto the Secretary of State website and you will go to the, it's a really helpful website. And I will tell you, the people there are amazing. I email them all the time. Doesn't take more than a day or two to get back to me, and they're wonderful. So you're going to go on, hopefully your PTA, if you've been doing this, is all set up. But if not, you're going to go to the charitable section. You'll see it. Click on there, and then they have these little tables, and it'll say file, register, instructions, and then you can actually read the instructions, or you can click file and then just go right to it. So on the instructions, they'll walk you through it. And then look at that, and you're going to need your financial information because it'll ask you what you did, what your expenses were. It's okay to group your expenses because they're only listed things like business expenses. That's going to be like any office supplies, copy, stuff like that. Then there's programs. And I think that's basically the gist of that.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't take you too long. And if you get in there and you're like, you can save it and contact us, then we'll help you get through it. That is generally due in February. They're being wonderful right now due to the pandemic and giving you lots of time. So just, if you have any questions, go and look at that website first, and then we're here to help you out, okay?
And remember too, some of our PTAs are no longer raising the kind of funds that they were when they were doing the charitable solicitation out filing. But unfortunately, the way it works is once you file it, you have to do it forever after that.
Yeah. And Mike so correctly points out, if you don't do the 990 and the charitable solicitations, if you are required to, there's some fines and suspension of your nonprofit status ultimately. And then if anybody donates to your PTA, those are not considered tax deductible. And then you don't want all of your members who've donated to get these letters from the IRS saying this is an invalid deduction. So please reach out. It's just really a lot easier to do it, get help doing it, than have to not do it and suffer some consequences for your PTA.
Yes.
Okay. And then if we're going to talk about fundraising, I think we all know that we're not just here to raise money. We have a mission. It's all children we want to help out, and we want to fundraise to achieve our goals. If we decide we want to do mental health for the students during the pandemic, or helping teachers, whatever our goals are, let's get money for that, and maybe a little bit of a cushion. But you really want to do 3 events, whether, community events, whatever an event looks like in this pandemic time, to 1 fundraiser. If you do too much fundraising, the IRS will look and say, I'm not really certain what your mission is. You're not spending any of the money you're raising. Are you really a nonprofit?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now, Shauna, I'm going to really have you work on this one because you work with our sponsors so well. And yes, you can have a sponsor, but Shauna?
Yeah, you could have a sponsor, but what you can't be doing is basically promoting their business. So you can't do endorsements. This gets really, kind of in a weird situation. Normally, if we were at our fall conference right now, Jeffco PTA has lots of sponsors and exhibitors who come to the fall conference, and that's primarily how we actually make our revenue with Jeffco PTA, so that we fund a lot of things. So we're in this really weird space. Now, I have some fundraising companies who really would still like to be doing fundraising with our PTAs. And what they would really like for me to do is kind of a commercial for them. So, but I can't do a commercial for any organization. Now, sometimes, our sponsorships or partnerships are in kind, like with the Jefferson Center for Mental Health. We promote their Helping Kids Thrive event. So, and they promote PTA. So, and, our events and joining PTA. So that's more of a partnership where both of us get something beneficial out of it. sponsorship for years and years and years. So, you know, even the Colorado PTA level, Jeffco PTA level, McDonald's has been like a major sponsor of ours. You know, they love to see parents engaged. They like to support literacy. A lot of their owners, you know, like to do different things with us to provide, you know, food or treats or different things for either our attendees to give us food or maybe a staff appreciation out of school. But what I can't do is do commercials for McDonald's. So, you know, or any other sponsor. So I can say thank you and put up their logo and thank them for being a sponsor, but I can't advertise them. So as it is to a form some advertising, but I can't endorse the company and say, this is the company you should use for fundraising.
Everybody go to McDonald's.
Right, so can't do it. So yeah, again, so this is just another one with the acknowledging sponsors. Thank you verbally. Signage, banners are great. You know, maybe your newsletter, maybe your social media, that's great. Appreciate them. Thank you for your support, but you know, don't endorse.
Shauna, what about, remember the old days when we used to have like I don't know, like the PTA member phone book, and in the back you had, you know, can you do a link on a website?
Yeah, we can do those kind of things. So as long as we're making it clear to, I mean, we're not endorsing them. So we can't, you know, endorse, you know, a lot of PTAs, just to make it clear, you know, we're not endorsing any of our sponsors or exhibitors, or just make a statement to people when you're doing it, or your agreement, you know, notes. Sometimes we've had companies who wanted to sponsor who would then put on their documents or something that they send out that they're endorsed or, you know, from the PTA. So, and that's not a thing. We don't do that. So we appreciate the sponsorship. And it's great if you have that partnership where if you want to put the link on their website, you know, and thank them for their sponsorship, great. If you want to just do their logo, that's fine. That's great. So, but do they have a link to your website on theirs? Because really, if you're going to have that partnership, they should be telling people to join PTA as well. Make it mutually beneficial and not singularly beneficial and not an endorsement. Okay. Answer all the questions there?
Okay, now somebody had asked me this earlier about documenting contributions that you get from people. This can get tricky if this is one of those things, if you have a large donor, then you need to really, the IRS has some requirements on that. So most of us get below $75. I give a receipt to everybody that I know that donates. I think it's just a nice recognition. It's very generic. It says, thank you for donating to the Jefferson County PTA. Our EIN is on there. Nothing was exchanged in kind because we don't exchange anything like that. So there's no way they, you know, that has tax consequences too. So we always say nothing was exchanged, so they can deduct the whole amount. You don't have to do that unless it's over 75. I thought that had changed to 50, but like I said, I tend to give everybody one, so I'm covered there.
Yeah.
You know, that 82, 83, that see the $5,000, that tends to be where you get tricky. If you have some big, I know that some of these developers around here like to try to do that. They contact us if that's happening, because that can be a little tricky when you file your 990. You just need to, what you need to prove to the IRS is they're not influencing you. Stricter stuff on the nonprofits, the election. So
and
you
we
have
had
to.
a question about that actually already this year too. So where a company decided that they would donate a large sum of money to a PTA, and they wanted to tell the PTA what they would do with the money. Companies don't get to come into another company and tell you what to do or how to run your company. They're not purchasing stock. They're not purchasing a piece of us. If they would like to make a donation, thank you very much. So here's our budget that we have in place, you know, and we'll be using it on XYZ. Now, if the company doesn't like that we're working on suicide prevention or something like that, that they have the choice to say, well, we're not going to donate to you then. I don't care. So that's fine. We're working on suicide prevention, and maybe we're working on mental health or school safety, and this is what we're spending our money on. You're welcome to support our mission of child advocacy. So, on our legally filed mission to make every child's potential a reality, but you don't get to come in and say, well, we want to buy every teacher a, I don't know, scooter. So, you know, I mean, that you don't get to decide that for, you know, our company. So if you'd like to do that with your company, you go right ahead, but you're not going to use our nonprofit status to get a tax deduction to try to go through us to, and that's usually what it is. They get a tax deduction and they, you know, we are supposed to do X, Y, Z for it. We don't do that.
No. So pretty much any donations you get will be quite straightforward. And then here's our resource page. Here's our website. I would just like to add underneath my, and maybe before my email, if you don't know your AAVP, your articulation vice president, they work really hard to know your area and what's going on. So I would really contact them first. Not that I don't want to help you. It's just they will be able to know what's going on in that area. And then if I need to get involved, or Shauna or anyone else, they'll reach out to us. You can always reach out to me too. I don't have any problem with that. But I know our AAVPs work really hard, and I just want a big shout out to them. That's how I started in PTAs. I have a soft spot for them. And so please, they have a lot of information to help you out. And they have an amazing mentor, Mike Elder. So that's really my first. Oh yes, good one, Mike. If you don't know who your AAVP is, then if you go to aavp@jeffcopta.org and send a short email, hi, I'm Debbie from Rooney Ranch PTA, who's my AAVP, they'll get you the information. Okay. And this is going to be really quick because we've touched on everything. But when I tell you, you need to be a healthy unit in good standing, we kind of jokingly call it HUGS, just because it's kind of cute. These are the things you need to keep your PTA nonprofit status. Do your officers list. You know, it's really already been done. It should already have been done. Like, do it as soon as you know. Your membership, which is getting ready to be due. Get your insurance from it. We like AIM. You don't have to use AIM, but we know that they have good insurance. Make sure your bylaws.
AIM knows PTA. That's the other really important thing. We've seen a couple units who purchased insurance elsewhere and they didn't get the appropriate coverage. So you want that, you know, errors and omission coverage, your officer coverage. You want that bond for embezzlement. And a lot of times insurance companies don't understand the kind of events we have at PTA. Big one.
Yeah. Check and see if your bylaws are getting ready to be due. They come due sooner than you think. If you're not going to make any changes, it's really easy. You just submit them and say no changes. But if you're going to have changes, I would contact Shauna. She'll get you the template. They'll help, you know, we'll help you walk through it. But make sure your bylaws are up to date.
Yeah, and we also have your AAVP is going to be able to get all those templates, and we have password protected pages on the website where all those things are available. You need to be in good standing to be able to get access to the documents. So, but your AAVP is going to help you get to everything.
Yeah, the AAVPs keep track and say, oh, this PTA might be missing their, they didn't send us a copy of their 990 in. And so, you know, they are kind of keeping track, so they'll be able to help you. All right, and then the whole fiduciary record package, which was basically this whole treasurer training. It's the financial review, the tax returns.
Yep. And if you get a letter from the IRS,
yeah.
Here's another one. If you get a letter from the IRS, the time to contact us is the day you get the letter from the IRS. So please, we need to respond to those things very promptly. So if we work with them, they work with us.
Yeah, so everything we talked about today, making sure your fiduciary records are plugging along like they should be, you'll be good. And then this is kind of a new one. If you've been in PTA for a little while, they are requiring leadership training. This will count. So if you're here and on that form for your financial review is where they have it. You put that you went to Jeffco PTA's fall conference.
Yep.
Okay. And then this one's a little interesting. Colorado PTA has it required that you have a nominating committee to replace your officers.
And we have a form on the website, another link on the website that tells you how to do the nominating committee. Your bylaws require this.
Yeah. Don't get intimidated. It really can be relatively informal. It just needs to be a process. And then why do you want to be in good standing? One of the most important things is the reflections program. The kids love reflections. I have a feeling this is going to be really important this year for them to have an outlet. And then to get the information, you have to be in good standing. And to get your exemption letter, you have to be in good standing. And there's our resource. That was our webpage. I just wanted you to see that. This and that, hopefully you got notification that your back to school kit. You just have to create a username and a password. I don't even think you needed any official code or anything. Did you, Shauna? I didn't.
Yeah, they have you register now. So, and as soon as you have submitted your officers list, you'll be able to get access to it. But if you haven't submitted your officers list, National PTA, sometimes their website will reject you for some of those because we have organizations that are not part of PTA that will attempt to use our proprietary resources. That's the problem on a regular basis. One of the benefits you get for being part of PTA is this. So all of these trainings, you know, things provided for free, our resources, our templates and tools. And honestly, you know, every time we've had a unit that decided not to be PTA anymore, so usually 2 to 3 years after that, I get an email. So, and this has been happening for one, you know, PTA that left 2 years ago, left Jeffco PTA. And unfortunately, unfortunately, they're, you know, now they're asking for training and help. So, so that's a big one.
Usually because they get an IRS letter.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. An IRS letter, or they don't know how to, you know, do treasury or any of those things. We don't do that. Katie was actually asking on here the new contact's name at the office. We actually had a new person, Ellie. They're gone now. So Agnes is back just temporarily, and then some of us are volunteering at the office as well to help out. Regardless, your contact is your AAVP. If you're just submitting documents, then you can submit documents to office@copta.org, but your contact is actually going to be your AAVP with Jeffco PTA, because the office is not fully staffed and has not been for a little while. Actually, Debbie has on here the jeffcopta.org. It actually takes you now to jcpta.org. So board before us kind of changed the email, but our emails are all under jeffcopta.org rather than jcpta.org, which works kind of nicely to avoid some of the hacking and spoofing incidents that happen. Copta.org has some great resources on there too. Obviously, we've got a little overtime with this particular training, but again, the treasurer's job is the largest one. There's, you know, it's not difficult, you know, if you're committed to doing it. And we can walk you through how to do anything. You just have to be a willing participant. I think a whole bunch of us that are, you know, on this have been presidents from time to time in various forms, some Colorado, some Jeffco, some local unit. We have all of the information for you. We can train you to do anything. We just ask that you make sure you do it. If you get those letters from the IRS, you contact us immediately. If you find something suspicious in books, you contact us immediately. If you have questions, we are really, really good at responding to questions from our local units. Our AAVP team is amazing. Mike is amazing. So we do try to get back to everyone within 24 to 48 hours, if not sooner than that. But we are very responsive. I'll tell you, I'm going to turn off the computer after this today. So, and I invite you all to do the same thing and go get some sunshine and get away from your devices. But again, Debbie, I want to say a huge, 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 huge thank you to you. I love you so much. I, love this board so very much. Grateful to you. These recordings will be available. You'll be going to your AAVP to get access to recordings, which won't be available until after next Saturday, our final day of the fall conference. Thank you, everybody. Saying thank you to in here. Hopefully you're looking at, so they know now that you are as wonderful as I tell you. So I love you very much. Having a fantastic treasurer, everybody will tell you who's been a president, is so the key to your successful PTA. So, and if you really want to be a success, you have an entire board like I do with Jen and Debbie and Liz and Michelle and, Mike and all of our AVPs. You are all wonderful. We're here for you. We have your back. Our job is not to be the PTA police. Our job is to help you out and support you. So go you. Thank you for volunteering. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend. And thank you for being here with us today.